Today I have traversed all the way from Atlanta, Georgia to just outside Atlanta, Georgia to hand deliver this first drive review of the all-new 2024 Chevrolet Traverse. Let's just kick off this video right away with the most important part of the equation, pricing. It is a good bit higher than the outgoing generations. Base price, it's now $3,580 more dear than before. The least expensive Traverse is now $38,995 with destination. However, they've simplified the trim structure. Surprisingly, there is no more luxurious high country trim, at least at launch. Chevy only brought the Z71 and RS trims to this event, but if you check out the LS model, which is the base trim level, you'll notice that it comes standard with quite a lot of equipment. For example, the 17.7-inch main touchscreen powered by GM's latest Android Automotive-based software, a full 11-inch digital instrument cluster, LED headlights, 8-passenger seating, a surround view camera system, a power tailgate that is activated via your presence next to it, and the all-new 2.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. This replaces the old 3.6-liter V6, which I was admittedly quite a fan of. All-wheel drive is optional on all trims but the Z71, where it is standard. You can get it for $2,000. That all-wheel drive system in the Z71 is actually a little bit more advanced than the one offered in the other trims. It is a twin-clutch system with torque vectoring on the rear axle that is tuned for off-pavement duty. It even throws in a terrain drive mode, which I'll demonstrate a little bit later. Now I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but if you were a fan of the old V6 or just the V6 sound in general, this new 2.5-liter Turbo 4 is not going to impress you that much. However, the numbers help make up for the sound. This makes 328 horsepower, 326 pound-feet of torque, both healthy jumps over its predecessor, mainly in the torque department. This can tow up to 5,000 pounds if equipped with the trailering package, which is standard on the RS trim and Z71, and only about 1,500 pounds or so if you don't have that package. In case you were wondering, yes, this 2.5 turbo is very closely related to the 2.7 Turbo 4 found in the latest Chevy pickup trucks, but this one has a slightly different design, and of course it is turned 90 degrees to fit this front-wheel drive-based platform. Now, if you're wondering, no, there is no hybrid option available for the Traverse either, which is a little bit disappointing considering a lot of the competition currently offers at least one. The Toyota Grand Highlander has two options. The Mazda CX-90 has also a plug-in hybrid option, and we are pretty confident that the next generation Hyundai Palisade and Kia Telluride will also offer hybrids. There were reports recently that said that GM was restarting development of hybrids and plug-in hybrids. Hopefully we do see the fruits of those labors make their way under this hood at some point in this generation. Fuel economy for front-wheel drive models is now 20 in the city, 27 highway, and 23 combined, while all-wheel drive models see 19 in the city, 24 on the highway, and 21 combined. Chevrolet was not shy in admitting that the Traverse is through and through a mommy-mobile, just like any other three-row family crossover. However, for Gen 3, they wanted to appeal more to a male audience as well. As a result, you have more macho styling up front, especially in the Z71 trim, and there's also a little bit more visual flair, especially when it comes to this C-pillar, which has that shark fin look that we've seen in a ton of new Kia products, except here, no shiny trim. They're offering some really cool paint colors like this beautiful red on the RS trim. This really helps the car stand out on the open road amongst the sea of silver, black, and white SUVs. Some of you may already know what the 2024 Chevy Traverse drives like because this thing is actually already at dealerships, but nevertheless, if you're looking to buy the new 2024 Traverse or a used model, make sure to click on the pop-up banner in the right corner of the screen. As far as I'm concerned, there's a lot to like about the way the new Traverse drives, but there are a couple of things that I wish were a little bit better. I really don't like the sound of this new 2.5-liter Turbo 4. I'll just go ahead and say that right up front. I just don't think it sounds particularly great. Under duress, it has a very distant and hollow sound to it. It doesn't feel very powerful, and it doesn't really give this the sort of dad car vibe that they're going for. I just don't think the engine note really fits with that goal. The steering out on the open road that we're on right now, it is generally quite light. There is a tiny bit of feedback coming through, but it does feel a tad bit artificial. And at lower speeds, the steering weight really firms up. It gets very heavy. It's almost difficult to do one-hand maneuvers in parking lots. So in that regard, you know, it does feel a little bit sportier, but I don't know if it's necessary for this car. I haven't done a true 0 to 60 test on this, but this feels very similar in its speed compared to the old V6. Again, just with that different sound. Handling wise, it doesn't really wallow around. There's not too much body roll going on. Of course, I'm not pushing the car too hard on these roads. So in that regard, you'll still feel very comfortable behind the wheel, no matter what kind of experience you have or how many passengers or cargo you have loaded up in here. I think this will be a very easy vehicle to drive. What makes it even more easy is the fact that for 2024, Chevy has added Super Cruise as an option. Now this is available on all but the base trim. It's actually standard on this RS trim, which is really nice. And we now even have back roads like this as part of the equation. So I can actually turn it on this rural back road, and it's taking care of everything for me. Of course, because it's level 2, I have to keep my eyes on the road. And even though I have sunglasses on, the eye monitor still can tell if I'm looking away or not. So that's pretty cool. And this is a really confidence-inspiring system. I'm really impressed with how it's working on this really tight curve we're on right here. This really takes the stress out of long-haul drives. Chevy did a whole presentation for us about their focus on safety and how they're really trying to reduce the number of fatalities in traffic incidents. And the fact that the Traverse is standard with pretty much every safety feature they have except for Super Cruise is a really good way to show that they're doing that. Super Cruise is available as part of an enhanced driving package that, for $3,280, also throws in enhanced automatic parking assist, that driver attention system that doubles as the green light for Super Cruise activation, and a 10-speaker Bose premium audio system. It's available on all trims but the base LS, meaning the cheapest way to get Super Cruise is a cloth-trimmed LT with front-wheel drive for about $44,675. The Traverse has been the king of cargo carrying since the second generation debuted for the 2018 model year, and that does not change here for 2024. We actually now have a standard Smart Sense power tailgate. With the key in your pocket, you can just stand here for a couple of seconds and the liftgate will open. And once you do, you will reveal the largest cargo area in the segment still. The Toyota Grand Highlander is very close at 97.5 cubic feet of overall space, but this has 97.6. But in the real world, they're going to feel very similar. Back here I have about 22 cubic feet of space, which is very competitive as well. There's also a sizable amount of storage under the floor that is not included in that 22 cubic feet figure. On this RS trim, you also have power folding third row seats and a remote release for the second row, but only on the RS trim. Unfortunately, none of the other trims get this. Getting into the third row is actually really easy, especially if you have a model with the captain's chairs like this. These are standard on RS and Z71 and optional on LT, but the LS and LT come standard with a bench seat back here for 8 total passengers. I would love to see them do a removable center seat for the captain's chairs like Honda does on the top trims of the Pilot. That would give you the flexibility of both 8 and 7 passenger capacity. Once you're back here, the space is really usable. I mean, I've got plenty of headroom at 5'9", and I have a decent amount of legroom. My knees are brushing up against the back of the second row, but those seats can also slide forward and backward. Now, Chevy did say that they gave the first and second rows more legroom this year and took away some of that space from the third row, which I think is a good trade-off because this is still a third row. You're not going to put people in every single day. You could, but I would say that giving those people up there more priority makes a lot of sense. Since I'm back here, let's look around and see what I've got. So I've got a USB-C port here on the wall on this side, a USB-C port on that side, 2 cup holders, and then air vents in the ceiling, but nothing else. Keep in mind that a Hyundai Palisade doesn't cost quite as much as this RS trim and offers third row heated seats. The second row is super comfortable here in the Traverse, though I do feel like these captain's chairs have a very high bottom compared to others in this class, but that's actually going to be really nice for taller passengers. And at 5'9" with the panoramic sunroof, I still have plenty of headroom here, about maybe 3 inches or so. And with the panoramic moonroof, this is actually a new one for Chevy. It's not a separate dual pane setup. It is a full glass one with a little bar in the middle to separate the part that opens up in the front. But this really brings in a lot of light into what is otherwise a pretty demure cabin. This is why I'm really upset that the High Country is not back for 2024, because for $58,000, I'm gonna need some brighter colors. This is the RS trim, so it is fully loaded. There are no options besides choosing between front or all-wheel drive, upcharge paint, and an optional engine block heater. With the most expensive color, iridescent pearl, and both the block heater and all-wheel drive selected, you'll max out a 2024 Traverse at $58,690. The RS trim has 2-person memory seat settings over here, but there are no memory seat settings for the passenger side, unfortunately. The drive mode selector is over here to the left of the steering wheel on the dashboard, which is a little bit of an interesting place to put it, as well as the all-wheel drive activation button. Those used to be down here, and it's interesting because they have moved the shifter up here as a stock now. So we're kind of going back to the stock trend. Hyundai's doing this as well to make more space for the center console, but in doing so, they didn't really add back any functionality. There's still 2 cup holders. There's still a little cubby right here to store things, but there are no functions down here anymore. They've moved a lot of that over here, including the parking brake, which is electronic. You also get the full 11-inch LCD instrument cluster and the 17.7-inch touchscreen that runs GM's new Android Automotive-based software, and it works really, really well. It's got Google Maps built in, Google Assistant built in, and the Play Store from Google built in, so you can download all your traditional apps to the system like Spotify, Waze, YouTube Music, any other apps you might use. Even if you are an iOS user, you can put those on here and still use them without actually having to tether your phone. But luckily, you can still use wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it all works really well. It's a snappy system, it's really quick to respond, and it's well laid out to the point where you don't feel overwhelmed by it. I love that you can put Google Maps as the full screen map display up here right in front of you on the instrument cluster. That is something that Audi pioneered over 10 years ago, and now we have it on a mainstream crossover. I love that. And everything else up here works pretty well. I will say though, there are some materials that are questionable. This is kind of that typical Chevy mix of hard and soft plastics. There is a good amount of piano black plastic here though, as you can see right where you're going to be touching things. There's a good bit of it. You can already see some fingerprints and scratching happening here. So not a huge fan of that, but at least at first it looks really nice and shiny. There's also a wireless phone charger right down here that securely holds your phone in place, 2 cup holders, and then a pretty decent sized cargo area in here with a little tray that you can pop out. And then we have a digital rear view mirror. Chevy gave me the opportunity to take the Z71 off-roading as well, so let's see how it did on this, frankly, a little bit mild course that they provided. Okay, so we're going to attempt to go down this sort of steep downhill up ahead here using the terrain drive mode, and unlike Toyota's crawl control, this is not a cruise control. All this is more of a one-pedal driving setup. It basically stops the car on declines and inclines, so let's see how that works. So yeah, if I stop, if I take my foot off the accelerator, it's going to allegedly stop us. We are creeping a little bit forward, but there we go. Now we're stopped. And continue on. Let's see. Here we go. So I'm just going to take my foot off the gas here. I mean, we're rolling through it. The engineer did say it's more useful when you're going up inclines than down inclines, and that does make a little bit more sense, but it does help you control your speed when doing more, tricky off-road situations like this, but most of you aren't going to do that. In summary, the Traverse still does everything it has been known for a long time really, really well, especially when it comes to hauling people and cargo. And if you're willing to overlook the changes under the hood and the lack of a few cool features on the top trim for $58,000, then the base price and the standard content will certainly wow you and should win you over, because for the same price, some of the competition don't even offer the features you get standard in this thing. So in general, the value is there. Even though the price is higher, you get a lot for what you pay for. So, do I think you should take a look at the Traverse? Absolutely.